So, yes, you, my sweet human, are the representation that people need. Now, it's so funny because I'm recording this from my parents' house, which is just outside of Houston, Texas. And it's so fitting because my parents are literally the embodiment of that. Like, truly. If you don't know my story and my parents' story, we really didn't start off with much. Like, I grew up in council housing in the UK, which is basically government housing. My parents immigrated from Angola to the UK and literally started out with nothing, like cleaning houses, selling bottles on the streets, like literally nothing. And it's so incredible just to see what they have built and how much they are impacting so many people behind them because they had that vision. And even though no one else around them was accomplishing the big things that they wanted to accomplish in life, they did it because they knew in themselves that they were the representation that others around them needed. And it's just so funny because literally my dad has legitimately always told me that you can do whatever you want to do. You can be whoever you want to be. And I really think that I've taken that to heart, maybe a little bit too far. But so as someone who throughout literally my entire life has always been the only female in the room, like the only female, the only Black person, the only Black female for damn sure, and the youngest person in the room, and usually the brightest and most colorful. This topic or this theme of you being the representation that people need to see truly rings so near and dear to my heart. Now, we are going to be looking at this a couple of different ways today, both within your community and also outside your community to people who you don't even know or you've never even heard of and that you'll probably never ever meet, okay? So I got this Instagram message the other day, and it was this young woman who is currently studying, and she said to me, like, we were talking about real estate investing, and she wants to get into it, but she kind of has these limiting beliefs around herself. And she said, true, but I'm not rich, and I know it takes money to make money. And I said, girl, back up, okay? I want you to stop right there because just because you aren't monetarily rich right now, it does not mean that you won't be in the future. Because guess what? Sure, maybe you didn't come from money, or maybe everyone around you is pretty broke and isn't financially responsible. Maybe you get the comment that like money doesn't grow on trees a lot. Just because you don't have that just yet doesn't mean you won't. Just because you're not currently surrounded by real estate investors or you don't have an investment property right now, it does not mean that you won't. And if anything, if you have that idea inside yourself that you want to go do this, it means that you were put on this earth to be that representation for everyone else around you. What if instead of thinking that, wow, this is my reality right now, no one else around me is financially responsible, no one else around me is a real estate investor, no one else around me is like quote unquote wealthy from a monetary standpoint, what if you were actually the person who was put on this earth in your community who needs to lead the path? Who completely changes the trajectory and the way that things go for yourself, for your community, for your family, for generations to come. Because just because no one else in your community has done it before, it does not mean that you can't. Now, as I was saying before, when I think about my parents really did not grow up wealthy. Like, when I was born, we lived in government housing in the UK. It's called council housing until I was about 7 years old. And then we moved to a really tiny little house on the outskirts of London because that's all my parents could afford. And they scraped literally everything together to make sure that my brother and I had an amazing life and a better life than they did. But my parents always knew that there was so much more to life out there for them. And they always had that grand vision, that grand plan in mind. And it's so beautiful that they came together as a couple, right? Because they both had this bigger vision of what life could be. And it's crazy because it's just like two young African people coming together and having this vision together, you know? And even though their reality at the time was not lavish, they knew that in the future they would be living the life of their dreams and would be able to afford anything and everything they really wanted. And it's so crazy because 20, 30 years later, look at them now. They have a beautiful life. They have homes that they love, but they just kept the faith and they held it high. And even though all the people in their community thought that they were absolutely crazy, that maybe they were dreamers, that they were being unrealistic, they always knew and they had a vision for their life. And they pioneered that for me, for my brother, for the other people in their family to show them what's possible. So just because you don't see it being represented right now, it does not mean that you cannot be that representation, because you absolutely can. Just start surrounding yourself with and putting yourself into environments with people who are where you want to be. And now community, like right now we've kind of touched more so on like community from a family standpoint, right? Or maybe it's your neighborhood, because it can look like so many different things. It can be your hometown. It could be your friends from school. Maybe it's your friends from high school. Maybe it's your friends from college. Maybe it's your coworkers at work. Maybe it's everyone from your local church, or it could be anything. But especially if you find yourself feeling like you're the odd one out, wanting more in life, just know that you are the representation that they need to see and that others who are close to them need to see, because you never know who you're going to inspire. Okay, so now that's like the community aspect, right? That's probably the people who are in your vicinity, the people who you could probably feel like you're directly impacting. But what people don't realize is that maybe you could be the representation as well for people who don't even know you yet, or who you will probably never get to meet. But you don't realizing you're influencing them and you are giving them permission to dream bigger as well. And so I remember before, when I was an engineer, right? I was very big on making sure young women, especially young women of color, or maybe even young international women who were either immigrants, knew that there was another way to do life. Like they could become engineers if they wanted to, even though, there weren't that many women of color in the space. I felt like it was my responsibility, right, to show them what was possible, what they could do, what they could be. And it gave them the permission to start looking into these fields and exploring a different life for them, and not being dependent on a husband or a boyfriend or a man to take care of them. But for a lot of these people that I was influencing, I had no idea who they were. Or maybe like I met them once in passing and then they just followed along on my journey, right? Even in my oil and gas engineering days, like in the industry, it was really funny because a lot of people who like met me outside of work, when I told them that I was a chemical engineer, they'd be like, "Excuse me, what?" Because I don't really like look like a normal engineer. I don't act like the stereotype of what an engineer is. But at the end of the day, it's just a label, right? So like, even though I was the one going into the office with the bright yellow dresses and the matching bright green print pantsuit and an orange skirt, basically like I literally wore whatever I damn well pleased, while everyone else was wearing slacks and a polo. But I was giving permission to other people to dress like themselves and be like themselves and stop conforming to the norms and just be themselves in the workplace, right? Because you were put on this earth to be who you are and show other people that they can be exactly who they are too. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a beautiful thing to do and be. Especially if you don't see someone like you doing the thing that you were meant to be doing, or doing the thing that you really want to get into, but no one else is doing it the way that you want to do it. Maybe you were supposed to be that representation. You were given the light and the talent to be yourself. You were put on this universe to be yourself. Own it. There's no one else there like you. No one else has your brain. No one else sees things the same way that you see them. And there's so much beauty in being yourself. People start to gravitate towards you. People want to learn from you. I remember literally, even when I went offshore to the oil and gas platforms, I would have to wear like my fire resistant clothing, because there are rules whenever you go offshore. You need to make sure that you basically wear clothing that doesn't like catch on fire, because you're in a dangerous environment. Explosions can happen, all of that stuff. And so I'm wearing kind of my drab fire resistant clothing, but a lot of people, whenever they're inside over there, if you're not like out walking around the platform, you're inside, they wear baseball caps. So picture this: on an oil and gas platform with 70 other older men, from either like West Texas or Louisiana or Mississippi. And then there's a little old me, one of maybe 2 or 3 females, and almost always the only Black female comes rolling in with a bright yellow hat that says, "You are sunshine in human form." So was it a little ridiculous? Yes, but I am a ridiculous person. And guess what? That didn't change the amount of respect that people gave for me, because I came in there with confidence. I knew my stuff, right? Like, I knew all the engineering concepts. I knew what I was there to do, and I was able to get there and accomplish the goal at hand. Me wearing a yellow hat that says "You are sunshine in human form" doesn't change that, but it does give permission for other people to go out there and do the same if they please. Because here's the thing. I knew that there was going to be a little girl out there who wanted to become an engineer or felt like they needed to be an engineer that was just really deep down inside full of light and bright colors and passion, but would always feel like they were an anomaly in that world. And so if I could show them that they could still be themselves and be in that world, it was 100% worth it, right? Take that into the real estate investing space, right? It's still a very much male-dominated world. And part of why I made the Wanderlust Wealth Academy women only is to give them a space to flourish, be themselves, build their confidence in what has always been a male-dominated field. And it's also why I started getting into groups with more entrepreneurs and rebels and misfits, people doing life their way and on their terms. Because that's the beauty of real estate investing, of entrepreneurship. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, how things have been done before, what you're supposed to do. The whole premise around it is doing things your way and giving permission to others to do it their own way too. So if you don't see it being represented like you or in your way, maybe that's just because you were meant to be that representation. And the number of people just like you who were out there will flock to you too. So you, my dear, my sweet, sweet dear, are the representation that others need. You are the one who is here to show the people you can do it no matter what age, no matter what skin color, no matter what background, because the second you do it, you give permission to other people to do it too. You show them it's possible. You normalize it. You stabilize it for them. You are the person that people need to see create generational wealth in your way. I know we kind of went on a bit of a tangent there, but I felt super passionate about it, so I had to put this out there. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. If you like this, make sure to actually leave me a review. I love reading through the reviews every single week, and it just like warms my heart. And just like tell me what you like, because otherwise I'm just spitballing things out here. So the more I know what you like, the more I know what to put out there. Okay, bye fam. Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.